Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to get started in a few moments. Just want to let everyone know, and I'll say it a couple times, that if you have questions, please use the Q&A tab on your Zoom app and we'll address them, but we will get started in a couple minutes once everyone has checked in and has appeared. For those of you who just joined in the last couple seconds, we're going to get started in just another moment or two once everyone has come in. If you have questions in the meantime, you'll be able to post them. Please use the Q&A chat function on the Zoom, and we will answer questions at the end. But we will get started in just a moment. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scott Janowitz, and I'm an Associate Administrative Judge of County Civil here for the 11th Judicial Circuit in Miami-Dade County. Thank you for joining us today as we launch our pilot program, courtHELP, which stands for Court Housing Eviction Landlord Tenant Portal, which is an early dispute resolution platform. courtHELP will give landlords and tenants the opportunity to communicate, exchange information, and enter into mediation agreements right from their smartphone, tablet, or computer without ever having to go to court. courtHELP is a collaboration between the Miami-Dade courts and Miami-Dade County. Joining me today are, on behalf of Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, Mr. Jason Smith, Director of the Mayor's Office of Equity and Inclusion, Miami-Dade Commissioner Raquel Regalado, Judge Gordon Murray, Administrative Judge of the County Civil Division, where eviction cases are heard, and Judge Melana Abreu, my fellow Associate Administrative Judge of the County Civil Division. Unfortunately, Chief Judge Nushin Saifi has been called to another matter and is unable to attend this conference. In July 2020, there was a question posed of how the courts could systematically change some of their processes, particularly in areas where there are a lot of self-represented litigants in a post-COVID world using technology. Then Chief Judge Bertilla Soto, Circuit Civil Court Administrative Judge Jennifer Bailey, County Civil Administrative Judge Linda Singer-Stein, and Judge Gina Beavides analyzed that question and were inspired to develop a project to achieve that change as it related to residential evictions. There is an expectation of increased eviction filings in the months ahead, particularly now that there are expirations of the CDC moratorium. An online platform for landlord and tenants would allow for early resolutions prior to the full court process and increase access to justice, which is always the court's goal. Additionally, participation would increase resolutions in less time, involving less resources, and would cost less. There would be fewer in-court person hearings, and there would be no need for anyone to miss work. I was proud to serve as one of the project business owners on a team along with various members of the 11th Judicial Circuit to develop courtHELP. We worked hard on developing an idea of how we wanted to bring early resolution to eviction cases without requiring landlords and tenants to expend resources coming to the courthouse. While we were in the middle of applying and waiting for any available grant money, Commissioner Raquel Regalado contacted us and asked how she could help. After explaining the idea of our online dispute resolution platform, Commissioner Regalado pledged her support, and shortly thereafter, a resolution to provide funding was unanimously passed and supported by the Miami-Dade County Commissioners and Mayor Levine Cava. We have diligently worked with Court Innovations, whose online dispute resolution is utilized by over 150 courts in 23 states, with continued guidance and leadership from Chief Judge Saifi and County Civil Administrative Judge Murray. The end result is courtHELP, which launched today. To explain it, it's a voluntary platform for cases where an eviction has been filed. Since we are the court system, this is not a diversion program. We would still recommend that landlords and tenants turn to the county under their ERAP program, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, as well as the Access Helps program for rental assistance where tenants are in arrears. However, once an eviction case is filed, courtHELP is available to both sides, though a tenant must sign up first. The Miami-Dade County Clerk of Courts have revised their eviction summons, so served tenants will know about courtHELP and will have the necessary URL. They'll be able to access it on any platform or smartphone. It is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Once they're on the platform, and you're going to see a demo of it a little on in today's conference, landlords and tenants will both answer questionnaires and provide information and documentation to each other to resolve part or all of their eviction case. Tenants will have the ability to draft their answer and have it filed automatically. Both landlords and tenants can request a mediator, and one of the Miami-Dade court mediators will get assigned and try to resolve the dispute. Finally, agreements can be drafted and filed to the court straight from the courtHELP platform. Creating courtHELP was the work of many people dedicating hundreds of hours of time. I would like to thank Mayor Levine Cava, Commissioner Regalado, the Miami-Dade Board of County Commissioners, Sandra Lonergan and the Miami-Dade Court Administration, specifically Maria Harris and Lisette Sanabria, the Technology Department of the Miami-Dade Courts, specifically Yanitza Madrigal and Michelle Zukovich, Harvey Rubin and the Miami-Dade County Clerks of Court, Vivian Perez, who leads the Mediation Department for the Miami-Dade Courts, my fellow county civil judges, and Court Innovations. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Administrative Judge Gordon Murray.
Thank you, Scott, and welcome to everyone that's joining this webinar today. And we're very happy and proud to be able to do the rollout for courtHELP. This is something that we've worked on for over a year. Hundreds of hours have been put into creating this platform. And when we first started with the question, we looked statistically at evictions in Miami-Dade County, and we sure saw that back in 2019, it was approximately about 18,000. But of course, the expectation as we looked was that evictions would probably double within the next year, especially with the results of the pandemic. And in thinking about that, and not just from a legal standpoint, but also understanding that a good community really starts with secure housing. And when we looked at those statistics, we saw that over 50% of those cases ended in default, meaning that the tenant never filed anything with the court. And that was discouraging. And so in trying to have an online platform, we've recognized that people are a lot more comfortable now with the digital age. They do everything on their smartphones and tablets, from ordering food and everything else, and that they may not be as sophisticated or may sometimes feel intimidated when it came to coming down to the courthouse to file papers, to find out, where do I file an answer? What do I file? Who do I talk to? Is there anyone that can help? And so we looked at this program as being a way that will help the parties in this case have a better say-so in what is a very important aspect of their lives as to where they live, because that affects not only the tenant, but it affects the family members. It can affect children whose schools may be changed because the parents have moved from one location to the other. It affects income of the parties. And so we're very glad that we're able to do this, and we're hoping that with the help of all of our partners, and many of you are here today, that this program will be out, the citizens will understand it, both the landlords and the tenants, and they will come and make use of it. And we'll talk a little bit more about it as this webinar goes forward. I guess back to you, Scott.
Thank you very much. Judge Melana Abreu, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, Judge Janowitz. Well, good afternoon to everybody. Again, my name is Judge Melana Abreu. I'm in the Hialeah Division of the County Court. I also listen to the many eviction cases that are in our county. So I am delighted, blessed, and very fortunate to be working with this wonderful team of folks that have provided this wonderful community resource, working with our community partners and our elected officials to try to bring this to our community, which needs it. So that is always a blessing. And I just want to stress that with the launch of this program, the work is not over. In other words, the next step is to try to market and get this program out to as many folks in our community as possible. And that includes any type of social media, websites, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and wherever it is that we can get the word out for this program. I know on the court end, we are instructing our judges to have a link to courtHELP on each of their individual websites. It will be posted on our 11th Judicial Circuit website as well as a resource to our community. It will be posted in the DBR, the Daily Business Review. We've also asked that it be posted on our 11th Circuit YouTube channel. You know, knowledge is power, right? So the more folks that have the knowledge of this program, the more success we are hoping that this program will bring to our community. We are public servants. We are here to serve, and we are really hoping to try to get the word out. That is the next step in this ongoing project between the courts and our community partners. So I am delighted to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'll hand it back to Judge Janowitz.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to turn the floor over to our sponsoring commissioner, Commissioner Raquel Regalado.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. And first and foremost, thank you for all the great work that you've done on this project. You know, just to echo some of the comments already made, I think this is such an important first step, right? As attorneys, we talk about accessibility to the court, and I think this program will allow the newfound use of technology to really provide that ability to get closer to the court system and to be responsive. 50% default is a frightening number. And, you know, we celebrate how diverse our community is, but unfortunately in our judicial system, that very diversity works against us. A lot of the residents of Miami-Dade County come from countries where they rely on notaries, and they don't understand that notaries are not attorneys here. They're scared of going to the courthouse. They don't want to miss work. They don't know how our process works. So I think it's important that this is a great first step, but now we got to do the outreach part. Here at the county, we've been working on the programming to help people through this, but this was a necessary step because a lot of people are not applying to that programming. Some people don't qualify. And I think that this early intervention and early mediation will really be impactful. So happy to support you. So glad that we could help. We're your partners here at Miami-Dade County, and this is really great work.
Okay. And now on behalf of Mayor Levine Cava, I'd like to introduce Jason Smith for a few remarks.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Smith, Mayor Levine Cava's Director of Equity and Inclusion, and filling in for her today. The mayor wanted all of you to know how excited she and all of us are about the launch of courtHELP. This program is going to help countless families around Miami-Dade as we prepare for an increase in eviction cases over the next few months. We are proud to partner with the 11th Judicial Circuit in order to facilitate negotiations between tenants and landlords. Not only will this help people stay in their homes, but it will better enable us to get financial relief to landlords who have struggled since the onset of this pandemic. This program really is a win for landlords and tenants and will be a very important tool in our arsenal as we move forward. It's also extremely convenient, allowing for parties to reach an agreement entirely online. The county will train key housing personnel on this important platform, and we look forward to sharing this platform with all of our constituents. We're eager to see the positive results this collaborative effort will have on our residents throughout Miami-Dade County, and are incredibly thankful to all of you who've worked so hard to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Now I'd like to go ahead, and I'm going to share my screen and show you a little tour of courtHELP before we take questions today. This and I can get a nod from the panelists if you guys can see it, make sure it's sharing properly. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So here is courtHELP. The important thing to note is, again, it stands for the Court Housing Eviction Landlord Tenant Portal. This is the URL. This is the important thing that needs to be marketed and pointed out to everyone. It's courtinnovations.com/Florida courtHELP. That is the URL that can be used in any browser, smartphone, to be able to access the Matterhorn platform for courtHELP. So that's the important thing. That this is also the URL that's going to be put on all the summons for a tenant when they get served. So that's going to be the first indication. However, the portal itself can be used for current open cases that have already been served or were already issued summons prior to today. So that's why it's also important to get the word out, because if a tenant did not get served with a summons that had the this courtHELP URL on it, they could still access this and go ahead and sign up for this for both sides to see if they want to participate in it. What we have is, when you go to the courtHELP site, you are greeted by the homepage, which has a welcome homepage, as tells you information about what this courtHELP portal is, and in the page as well, we do have links to the county ERAP program, as well as the Access Help link, as well as a link to the 11th Judicial Circuit Resource Center. That's where that's where the court system has links to other outside entities and resources for both landlords and tenants should they need it. As was mentioned before, some people may not, this could also be a scenario, since this is a voluntary program, maybe people don't use the courtHELP system, but at least they have access to the resources here. Get started, all a tenant will need, and it is something that the tenant needs to initiate first, is they have to look on their summons and give a case number, which will be found on the top right-hand side of the summons that they receive. As you can also see, this is an example summons, and in the middle of it is where there's actually language to tell people where to go to find courtHELP. Once they have they search, they're going to be able to once the case is found, there's the options on how they're going to register. So I already see a question, so I'm going to answer sort of advances. If anyone who has signed up as an agent or an attorney for any party within the court system, that will be sent on to courtHELP, and that individual will be able to sign on. So in this case, actually, we have two parties as well as an attorney to be able to access the case on behalf of clients. So following the tenant, and the landlord's going to have a very similar one, but the tenant has questions that are going to be asked of them. Now, a lot of these questions for any attorneys or parties that are experienced in this field, a lot of these questions are not necessarily required questions for filing of answer. It's not even necessarily questions to work on the case, but this is an information gathering session, so that a tenant will be able to put in information to the landlord, as well as any sort of other documentation they want. I would like to point out, as you can see, that right now the questionnaire is in English. Part of the project has always been that this will also be in Spanish as well as Creole. However, we wanted, because of the recent court rulings and because the moratorium has ended, the functionality of courtHELP was ready to go. So we wanted to make sure we got this tool in the hands of the community right away, and we will shortly be updating courtHELP with the necessary language changes and language additions to that. So that is why you're seeing this right now in English. However, part of the questionnaire is going to ask landlords and ask these tenants, are they comfortable speaking in English, reading English? That's because if later on they request a mediator, the mediation department will actually see that kind of information and will make sure the right kind of mediator is assigned. So the tenant will fill out a questionnaire. Simple pressing of buttons can be done. Anything, ask questions about where they live, ask, are they still living there? And as well as a response to whether or not to the eviction itself. For those, part of what I get asked about when it comes to courtHELP is this solely a way to sort of avoid evictions? And and that's not necessarily it. We're trying to have cases get resolved for both sides. what we're trying to accomplish is there could be situations that we are aware of where a tenant maybe does not have the funds and still does not qualify for additional resources and is probably going to have to leave their residence and find a new place to live. But what gets scary is if a default gets entered and one day the sheriff's department shows up with a 24-hour notice to move, that can put a lot of stress for both landlords and tenants. So a simple resolution in this case can be that the tenant is going to say, I'm unable to pay, I just need more time to move out. And that's one of the responses. And maybe there can be an agreement to dismiss this case with just a simple agreement of, I need a few weeks, I need a month, whatever it is. It can even be different terms. So we do ask the tenant what's their situation. Again, this is all information that will be sent to the other side as well as the mediation department to help resolve a case. Some of these choices on a questionnaire will have different subparts to it depending on what the selection. So if you're unable to pay the amount owed, you can put in what you think you do owe and answer some other questions. You have the ability to upload supporting documents. So if there's issues regarding the residence and the condition of the residence, a lot of times we do get answers and complaints about conditions of the residence as part of an answer, or we get that I was paying part of my rent by painting the house, and here's the proof. You'll be able to upload those items here. Finally, if there is about payment in terms of the court registry, this site does not have the ability to take funds because that is strictly a clerk process. So a tenant would still need to go to the clerk of court to deposit the court registry. However, we do have a link to their website. I believe the clerk's office does have even a calculator to calculate what's exactly owed. But that's something that's not done through the courtHELP system. Finally, one thing that we're also added on as part of courtHELP is the ability for a tenant to file an answer. Obviously, a lot of times tenants are not don't even know that they don't have to file an answer, or they don't know what to do to file an answer. So this is a very simple answer generator, as I like to call it. It's just going to say what paragraphs do you admit towards, what paragraphs do you deny, which ones you don't, and any other affirmative defenses that a tenant wants to put onto an answer, and that answer itself will get filed. And then that gets filed into the court. Obviously, at the end, again, still at the bottom of once the tenant has filled out the questionnaire, they're given all the terms, and they're even giving additional links and areas that they can go to find additional information. The same thing happens with once that happens, actually, let me go back for a second. Well, part of the filling of this out is actually going to have that the landlord will give the information for the tenant will give the information for the landlord, and they'll be able to give an email, cell phone, things like that. And then the landlord will get the notification that the tenant has signed up and has said, I'm participating in courtHELP. The landlord will have the ability to go in and say that they want to participate. When they say they want to participate, they will also fill out a questionnaire. Similar but different questions, including whether or not they have a management company. And it's just going to be their perspective of how of the situation. Once everyone's signed up, the parties are going to be able to have a conversation with each other. Here we have screens from both the vantage point of the landlord and the tenant side by side, obviously, just to show it off. Once there's an additional conversation piece, a message, both sides will be emailed and even and possibly even text message. Hey, there's an additional text in that, so go back to the portal. So it's not like someone has to sit here waiting for a response or having to keep checking. If a landlord or tenant responds to a question at 2 o'clock in the morning, then they can wait till they get notification the next morning that there's been a response. Additionally, the parties will have the ability to either prepare a settlement agreement, prepare a dismissal, ask for the mediator if there's additional landlord or tenant needs to be added, or what we say opt out. If the parties have, one party at least decides that they don't want to participate in courtHELP anymore, there's that option as well. In which case, once they do opt out, courtHELP session would end and the parties would need to return to court to litigate their case. Once a mediator joins, if they request a mediator will get assigned. And here's how the conversations from a mediator standpoint goes. It's just the easiest way to show everyone how it looks. From a mediator, they're going to be able to see the conversations that the landlord and tenant had with each other. The landlord's going to be able to have private conversations with the mediator and landlord can have private conversations, and the landlord and the tenant and mediator can have private conversations. So that way, it's just like a mediation in terms of confidentiality, in terms of a mediator talking to each side, so that a mediator, if requested, can come in and try to resolve the case. Finally, there's the drafting of the agreement, which we hope is going to happen quite a bit for everyone who uses courtHELP. Just additional questions. The agreement is a generator. It's just going to ask various questions, form language that is what needs to happen that we find is going to be applicable in most cases. And the agreement gets generated with the information that was filled out at the time. That's the second part of it, as well as that it's going to be an order approving it. And when that gets done, part of that as well, I should say, and let me go up 1 second, is because some people have asked me, is that since it's a form generator, what about some unique terms for each case? Well, there is a portion and a place for that. So the parties will be able to put an additional area. Here's what else has to happen or different. So it's not just it's not that it's needs to be in a particular format. Once both sides have agreed it, everyone's going to be able to review it. And each side does that on their own, and they're able to sign. You're able to sign using a mouse on a computer, your finger on the smartphone, and that's how you're able to sign it. Once both sides have signed it, formal agreement is reached and submitted to the court. Then hopefully if there's a voluntary dismissal with that, then that gets filed as well, and then the case would be dismissed. The last part I just want to mention is, because I don't really have the ability to sort of demo that right now, is that there is going to be text alerts. As long as both sides sign up with their cell phones, the platform will text people what's happening and what's going on, where you're invited, something has been received, here's your case number, there's an initiation, as well as you have new messages. So that way, really anyone's going to be able to participate. Everyone should get notification. And that's how the platform sort of works. So again, the important thing is the URL, because that's what we really need to get out there so people start using this platform. It's because of the development and the way we've looked at this, we believe that this is going to be a useful tool and a way to get landlords and tenants to come to an early resolution without needing to have to come to court and having additional hearings. So I thank you very much. So at this time, that's sort of the demonstration of courtHELP on that. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A tab. We're going to answer some of those that I see there. Let's see. So taking a look at one question. One question is being asked that if a tenant gets an eviction notice, that the tenant need to pay the fees to the court to be able to use the portal. Well, as people know about Florida law, there are a lot of instances where a landlord needs to make payment to be able to assert defenses. However, to use the portal itself, there is no requirement that the court registry deposits be made to the clerk of court. That's kind of the idea of this as well, is that if during that time period, because obviously a tenant has 5 days to respond, they can still sign up for this. And this is a way for parties to negotiate and talk without having to go to court and try to get default judgments. So there's no requirement to use it. That being said, one disclaimer that is throughout the site that we do say is, as judges, we are going to follow the law, and whatever the Miami-Dade ordinances and Florida law, state statutes all say, we are going to follow it. This is a portal that's in compliance with that. I forgot to mention earlier, but I definitely need to. Patricia Gladson, and as general counsel for the 11th Judicial Circuit, and her team, particularly James Raleigh and Peter Brown, for their assistance in this. So, our job as judges is not to tip the scale, and we're not doing that. We're just trying to provide an avenue and a platform for parties to talk.
One thing to be clear, Scott, and I question one, there's no fee for using this portal. It's free. And I think it's going to be very, very, useful to the citizens. Many of them don't have the ability to hire an attorney. Many of them don't even know that we have 7 different branch courts in addition to the old court downtown and the criminal and everything that we have. There's branch courts where cases can be filed. So many things that the citizens don't really understand about the system. But just about everybody has a phone. Everyone has some sort of electronic device that they can sit right there at their house. You don't have to worry about the 5 days. You can be filing your answer or some responses that same afternoon that you were served. And again, there's no fee to use the portal.
Yes, if I could just piggyback on that, this is Judge Abreu. It's important to try to respond right within that time and to make the effort, and it being able to be processed electronically expedites everything. So I urge folks that, as Judge Murray said, when you get served, you can do this right from your phone, and it's very user friendly, and you could do it right from your phone and start, making the effort and the process to see if the parties can negotiate through this new portal.
So another question is, if someone has applied for funds through the county and they're still involved in an eviction process, what happens to them? And sort of in conjunction with that, someone else is asking about, will the court still enforce the requirement that rent be posted in the court registry and entering judgments upon motion to strike if money is not posted as required? So like I was just saying, as judges, we are going to follow the law, and when the law requires certain outcomes based on action or inaction, it's necessary for us to do so. We hope that that the parties would negotiate. Quite a few times, parties have come before me on an eviction case over the last couple months, and it has been before me on a particular hearing, and quite often I'm being shown, oh, here's where I applied, here's my receipt number, and even the landlord at that point is saying, well, Judge, if you can just set it off a month, let's see if we can get that resolved, because my understanding and Mr. Smith or Commissioner Regalado, you guys can chime in,
Yeah,
but about ERAP program, but my understanding is it's available. So
right, yeah, no, and look, I think it's important for those listening to understand that you guys are also providing links to that ERAP program when we talk about the ability to upload documents and to have this conversation with the landlord. You can upload your ERAP application. You can upload proof, right, that you've started this process and share that with the landlord. And I think that can be a positive step towards the resolution, or like you were saying, everyone deciding to wait a little bit more time. One of the issues that we've had with ERAP is that lack of communication between the landlord and the tenant. So that's why we think that this portal will also help with that.
Commissioner Regalado, there's a question for you. Is the county looking to create a local moratorium since the federal is over?
Right now, the county is not looking at that. We do not have emergency powers the way that we did at the beginning of the pandemic, but we are looking at other programming and also contingency plans, because as you mentioned, we are expecting a lot more evictions.
In terms of the program, again, like we keep saying, it's free, it's available all the time, and it's available for any type of device. However, it is still voluntary. That's one of the reasons why we start with the tenant asking whether or not they want to participate. So it's up to the tenant, because if the tenant doesn't want to participate in courtHELP, which we would hope they would, that's the tenant's choice. And when the landlord gets notification that the tenant has signed up for courtHELP, whether or not the landlord wants to participate is the landlord's decision. So both sides have to choose to participate. And if they don't, or if they start participating and opting out because they can't reach an agreement, normal litigation would then proceed, and the case would have to be pursued in the courts.
But, normally in many eviction cases where a person is sort of falling behind, they tend to avoid the landlord. Many people are served by being posted on their property instead of being served, and they kind of go apart. This is a way to bring folks together, because again, when you get served, you can go right there, and maybe the landlord has been waiting to hear from the tenant. And sometimes the tenants are too, embarrassed and they, bad about their situation that they've fallen behind, because no one really wants that. Everybody wants to have a stable home because most people work close to where they live. Kids go to school close to where they live, their friends, people want to stay in there, but they fall behind because many times circumstances beyond their control, and then they tend not to talk to the landlord. This is a way of hopefully bringing people together, because then, as I said, sometimes the landlord is trying to hear from the tenant, but the tenant is nervous about the legal process. So again, this is a way that I think is going to be helpful to everyone.
Another question. Oh, go ahead.
I would add really quick that I think it's also going to be very helpful for oral tenancies. As you all know, those are very complicated. They don't have a written agreement, and there's lots of miscommunication and misinformation associated with oral tenancies. Those tenancies also cannot apply for assistance through ERAP. So we've been very concerned about those, and we did actually pass a resolution changing oral tenancies somewhat, and we are working on a tenant's bill of rights. I'm working with Jean Monestein on that, and we're also going to be working on a landlord bill of rights. So all that is coming, but right now we have, a crisis looming, and we hope that this is an important first step in getting people to communicate and hopefully resolve their landlord-tenant issues.
Someone has asked, since this is a pilot, how long it was going to last and what happens after the pilot. We're fortunate as with our partnership with the Miami-Dade Board of County Commissioners and the Mayor's Office, where we have sufficient funding to run a sturdy pilot program. It's not based on time. I think it's going to be based on the number of cases. If we see the high increase of eviction cases, as Judge Murray was pointing out earlier, I think we normal before the pandemic had 18,000 a year. So depending on how evictions goes, we'll be able to do. But we're going to be keeping track of statistics and how well this is working. And it would be our hope that this is successful. And if successful, then hopefully we can keep it going or even expand it. And maybe if it's really successful, find other avenues within the court system that a online dispute resolution mechanism like this would be beneficial to the community. I don't know if there's any other.
Yeah, Scott, there's another question regarding this recording. Yes, it'll be available on the 11th Judicial Circuit YouTube channel. They're asking, would this presentation be available for future reference? And you can find that on the 11th Circuit Judicial YouTube channel.
In terms, another question that's is asking about platform. Can it be used to help with the return of a tenant security deposit? Well, like anything else, an agreement can be, anything can be put as part of an agreement. So yes, if that's part of the agreement, that can absolutely be discussed and part of the discussion. So that there's no I don't even know what I was going to say, but there's no difference in terms of what the agreements. It could be a variety of different things regarding that regarding return of keys, or the exact date or exact time, any condition of the property. Terms can be negotiated between the parties regarding anything of the eviction case. Do we have any other questions? All right, we got a couple more. Yes. Asking about mediators. Vivian Perez is in charge of our mediation department, and she is going to be be notified of when a case is asking for a mediation, and she'll be assigning a mediator that's appropriate for that case, depending on language availability and everything like that. There may also be opportunities that the mediation department would hold a mediation through Zoom, if that would be better. So for some landlords or tenants that maybe not comfortable even typing, and it would just be better to do, say, a Zoom mediation with the mediators. Our mediation department has been doing Zoom mediation, so that's going to be available too as part of this. So,
but it is a court-appointed mediator, and it is through the courts that the mediators are appointed.
I would say it's a court mediator, not appointed, because we won't be, it's not going to be court
Correct.
ordered, but it is one of our 11th Judicial Circuit mediators. So, all right. I don't see anything else. All right. Commissioner Regalado, did you want to put any, actually, well, we just got a question before I'll turn to you for closing remarks. And it is a good question about the judges seeing the comments between the parties. The judges, we will not be accessing courtHELP. Me giving you the demo is about as close to courtHELP as I'm getting in terms of that, because mediation is meant to be more of a process between the parties, and it's for their discussions and that. So there will be some case managers and the court staff that not tied to the judges specifically, that have access to be able to see whether or not cases have gotten stagnant, or whether or not, to see how a case is moving that's participating in courtHELP. Obviously, our mediation department will have access to comments between the parties as well as with the mediators, but judges and the judges' staff will not be accessing courtHELP. We're trying to make this quasi outside the judicial system. So that's the intent.
And I think similar to the rules of mediation that says that what's said in mediation is not admissible in court, we would hope that all of this would probably take the position that any conversation between the parties and courtHELP, may very well also not be admissible.
I think there was another question about the court paperwork, whether the information regarding the program will be included in the summons, and the answer is yes. The link, once a person is served or posted with the information that an eviction has been filed, will be on their paperwork that they receive. So they, again, can sign up for it right away.
Obviously, as we go through this program during this pilot, there will be additions, there will be improvements to it as we get feedback and comments to it. So we do also invite that as well. But we hope that this will be successful. Commissioner Regalado, do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to say?
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for clarifying the points about the mediation. I think it's so important for people to understand that this is a resolution space, right? So when we talk about uploading and speaking with the parties, it's all about trying to resolve this before it gets to our judges, which is why it's so amazing that you've all done this. We mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, all the work that's gone into it. This is really a product of best practices learned from our last economic crisis. And the timing was actually perfect in terms of what we're dealing with and how quickly you were all able to put this together. I really want to thank you. At Miami-Dade County, we're working on a lot of different things to help landlords and tenants. Like I mentioned, there is no one silver bullet. Even if people think that a moratorium, for example, is a silver bullet, it doesn't solve the problem, it prolongs it, right? So as we face our new reality without the CDC moratorium, we really believe that this is one of the tools that's going to help all the parties. And we're going to keep working and learning from this pandemic and from the crisis that it's created for landlords and tenants. So I want to thank you all for your diligent work. It really is a wonderful platform. It does bring government closer to the people. And I think it's really going to help a lot of landlords and tenants to resolve their issues and hopefully lighten your caseloads.
Mr. Smith, Jason Smith, do you have any comments on behalf of the mayor, closing remarks?
Thank you to the 11th Judicial Circuit, Commissioner Regalado, for your sponsorship and leadership on this issue, and the entire Board of County Commissioners. We look forward to serving our community in the best way possible and sharing this important web portal to our residents. Thank you all.
I think there's a last one or two questions that should be answered, folks. I thought I saw them.
I've answered some of them on the Q&A itself. So as we were doing closing. So I would say this, that in terms of notifications that have come in for the last questions, that the landlord attorney may not automatically be notified. It would be something that's through the portal that either the tenant will have given or the landlord needs to notify their attorney. There may be notification through depending on the filing of the answer is actually how an attorney would probably get notification, since a tenant who files the answer through the portal would go to the attorney as well. And so there's that. Judge Murray, do you have any closing remarks?
Well, I just want to thank our host and my Associate Administrative Judge Scott Janowitz, who was really been on the program from the beginning. Not only did he know the legal side, he knew the tech side, which was, invaluable for us to get this together. And also my other Associate Administrative Judge, Melana Abreu, has been there as well. I mean, this is something, we have 20, I'm the administrative judge for County Civil. We have 21 judges that are county-wide, stretched throughout the county in different courts. And we're handling landlord-tenant cases, and they're all different depending on, where they live at in the county. And again, this is a program that is really, I think, going to help bring parties together and resolve disputes and save judicial hours for, other matters. But I thank everyone for their efforts.
So I guess there's two last little questions I want to make sure so that everyone's clear about it. When someone had asked the question when we were talking about security deposits earlier, this is not, courtHELP is not a platform for security deposit cases. However, the issues of security deposits in an eviction case, that issue can be resolved as part of the eviction case, which is what courtHELP is for. courtHELP is going to be, at least for the pilot project, limited to residential evictions in those case types. And then for those of you that heard us talking about timeframes and some of the Florida law, courtHELP itself is not going to shut down at a certain period of time. I was just indicating that as a judge, we would still be following timeframes than when it was brought to us from a landlord or a tenant. But as far as the court system is fine, if the landlord and tenant are negotiating and neither one really wants to move forward on the eviction because they're still negotiating and resolving the case on their own, the court system and courtHELP will not be pushing them or telling them that they have to finish up or the case is over for courtHELP. That's part of the idea of this. Is we're trying to get the parties to talk, and if they need additional time to talk, as long as they're willing, we're willing to wait for them. So that is what we're going to be doing. Judge Abreu, did you have any closing remarks?
I just want to say thank you again to everybody and reiterate the importance that this is not over. This is a continuing process, and we must get the word out to our community. If you remember nothing else of what I said today, is to please help get the word out on this wonderful program, because there's something very empowering, right, about trying to mediate and fix your own issues and resolve an issue. And knowledge is power. Empowering the community to try to resolve these very important life-affecting issues is a wonderful tool. And again, thank you to everyone involved in the countless hours that were spent trying to put this together. Thank you.
So for me, I just want to put this last screen up so everyone has the URL again. That's the important part of what we need to get out there. I want to thank Commissioner Regalado, Jason Smith. I also want to thank Mayor Levine Cava, Chief Judge Nushin Saifi, Judge Gordon Murray, Judge Melana Abreu, and everyone I mentioned before for joining today and giving their thoughts and helping put this courtHELP together. I thank everyone for coming today, and please help us get the word out so that this can be a very successful project. With that, thank you very much. Have a good afternoon and long weekend.